Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and this one's a depressing story. I want to make sure we talked about this one because thanks to Luis Lecca over at Nerd Report who's with me. Hey, Luis, thank you for bringing this one to my attention. Man. Happy to have you, but this one's kind of a bummer to see what's out there. I want to make sure we put this out there to make sure you guys are aware of this and make sure you do your homework on it. Because, Luis, as you brought up, there's a new book coming out called True Believer. And one might see this and think, oh, cool, it's a good Stan Lee biography. We're going to get some insight. But no, even this, look at this, Forbes headlines. New Stan Lee bio, The True Believer shatters the myths surrounding the Marvel icon. So long story short, the book goes in and starts just crapping on him. It's always what happens when people die. So they talk here in this first paragraph how he died, he was a hero and fans cheered and his Marvel cameos, etc. The problem is Lee's jaunty public persona and beloved cameo appearances in Marvel movies concealed a rat's nest of troubles under the surface. Since departing Marvel for Hollywood in the 80s, Lee involved himself in one failed or disappointing venture after another. I mean, so? What business person doesn't have failed businesses is ridiculous. With a veritable rogues gallery of villainous business partners. So let's vilify Stan Lee for people he associated with himself. Cool. More significantly, his creative legacy came under increasing scrutiny. How much, if anything? Look at this. Look at this, Luis. How much, if anything?
Ridiculous.
Now, not only are they, because clearly there have been some people who have, challenged Lee, who made what, but they're literally even implying, did he make any of it? He was clearly like, oh my God, it so frustrates me. As if the author and the people don't have their own vendetta or agenda here to sell books. It's like, why? So we have to believe this random author instead of. Anyway, I'm going to come to Lewis's thoughts because Lewis has some thoughts about the man who he's met, Stan Lee. I got to meet him briefly, but Lewis had a few more exchanges. Served as Marvel's editor, credited as writer, contributor, and characters and stories that cemented Marvel's superheroes. Within some quarters of the comics community, Lee's outsized share of the credit constituted an act of theft from his collaborators, notably Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. Both men died without receiving even a fraction of Lee's public acclaim, much less the financial reward their work brought to Marvel and then later Disney. And so, Lewis, this keeps going and going, the warts and all profile of his last 18 months, and this book is now going to come out, and I don't even plug this book, but Abraham Reisman, who is just a journalist from Vulture, investigated this, and it's a part for the record biography and part effort to balance the scales between Lee's public reputation and more complicated truth underneath. So it's just a tell-all rag with this guy is going to clearly try and get more sales because he's going to make it more salacious is what's actually happening here. And that's so frustrating. So look, there's so much here. We can talk a bit more, but Lewis, back me up here. This is insane, right? Is this how Stan Lee's legacy should go out now that he can't defend himself?
I hung out with Stan Lee for hours. I was not involved in any of his business ventures, except he did come to a few of my conventions. He was not always feeling well, but one thing I will tell you, why people cheered when they saw him in public is because in private, when he met him, he was always great to everyone. And everyone feels they knew Stan Lee personally because if they meet him on the street, if they meet him anywhere, he'd take the time to talk to him, regardless of being a fanboy or fangirl. So this is revision of history from people who don't know him. I'm telling you right now, he brought joy to people. I know, like, if you're in a sad mood and you bumped into Stan Lee, he'd bring joy to your heart. And that's all that effing matters, man. And this is super ridiculous stuff. I've heard worse than this come out of especially Twitter after his passing. He was very inclusive of everyone who respected him, and he respected them. His staff was multiracial, multicolored, multi-background, everything. From what I saw of Stan, and I did hang out with him for a lot, he was amazing. The conventions and Marvel movies have not been the same after his passing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and just going through some of this more, I'm looking through this article that sort of talks about what to expect. I mean, it's just such a biased hit job trying to sell books. Let's be honest. They want to tell the truth, but come on, man, you're telling your own truth here.
Were they there? Were they
exactly?
There?
No, he's doing his homework, talking to jaded business partners and everything else. Lee's later life on Earth, a few stories that blemish his reputation and generally paints Lee as a restless and unsatisfied man whose own definition of success always lay just beyond his reach. I mean, like, look, you're taking a take on this. Now, is there, and Lewis, let's be fair, are there debates as to who created what? And I'm sure, right? I'm sure that's the whole creative back and forth in wrestling.
There's no debate. Stan Lee gave credit to Jack Kirby and Ditko. He has done that before in the past. There's documentation. You can see it on the internet. What else do they want? Ditko left the Marvel scene. He didn't want to be part of it. And Jack Kirby, from what I understand, he passed away before Marvel got big. Stan was the guy, the spokesperson, that he was trying to sell Marvel during the dark times, during the 80s, I believe. No one cared. He was calling all the studios to get his projects out. They were hanging up on him.
Yeah, it even says Disney had settled a lawsuit with Jack Kirby's estate in 2014 and finally secured credit and a healthy financial payout for Kirby's heirs, reopening the matter of Lee's true role. But that's just BS. You just pointed out Kirby did get his credit and got paid. So at the end of the day, what are we fighting here? Like, what is the reality of this when you're even acknowledging that they did it? And so, good for them to go seek it through. And sometimes it's complicated. Look, I can't tell you the amount of people who say they created honest trailers, Lewis. It's a complicated creation, especially under a company. It's freaking complicated. But I assure you, the idea, the concept, it was mine. I shared credit with a colleague of mine, Brett, at the time, because while Brett didn't come up with the idea of let's do an honest trailer, the title or the format, he was integral in helping me get the tone of it down and like the starring section and stuff. And he helped to build sort of the format that we made. But the concept of like, hey, let's get an honest trailer voice. Let's talk about a movie and let's do it in a trailer format. Let's be honest. It was my idea. I get to own it. I get to have that credit. Now, people came in and helped. Spencer, Dan, Brett, they all came in and became part. There were other people, Alec, other people that really were integral parts of that show. So at the end of the day, yeah, they should have some part of the process, right? But it's so complicated because I'm sure there's some writer who came in. They've said there was a guy who worked above me who said it's not what it was. And so you can choose to believe me or not, but the reality is everybody's going to come in with sort of their own version or story of it. But the reality is I was there. I started it first. Clearly, Brett and I have been credited for a while. So like what it is. So the problem is like, we can't cancel Stan Lee afterwards for things now that he's not here based off of a bunch of creative differences and complicated business parts that shouldn't define the man, especially in his death. So I was going to say, yeah, it seems like a lot of those made choices or maybe were frustrated. It's just like Bill Finger with Batman. That was a whole nother one that a long battle where his kids try to get the rights to that. I could see that being a complicated story that maybe there is some stuff that we don't know, but to then say and define it as, his scary, the way they're doing it here. And then they even go on and talk about his final years, which Lewis, I was there for his final years. And the troubling details that, what was it? There was one here. The last year of life, his life it's not for easy reading. Failing health, declining mental facilities, plus the loss of Joan, his wife, left him hapless against the vultures circling him. That was true. That was very true, and more of a reason why I don't like what they're doing here, because the man lived at those events and was excited, but at the same time was just sad. Sort of, you could just tell.
There was a gentleman by the name of Max Anderson that I knew. He always took care of Stan Lee, sometimes vilified. As far as what I saw, again, I'm not a business guy with them or anything. From my opinion, he took care of them, and I think even I'm not sure if it was Kevin Smith who said it. He took care of Stan like if he was his mother. Because people did want to get free autographs and stuff, but Max was very protective of him, made sure he was well, and Stan was very, very uppity, walking around like a 30-year-old. When he departed, I don't know exactly what happened. That's when you see the difference in Stan Lee. Stan Lee loved doing the appearances. He loved being with the young people. It kept him young. All right. And he was always nice to everyone. I remember interviewing him or being in a room at Comic-Con where he had like 30 people half his age. He was talking about Marvel, the history of DC, Marvel, and everything, the rivalry. He was up. When Max left, it was over.
Well, I mean, I can share a different story. It's not a very his last years of life were not very good. We got to do near the end. We got to do an event that Chris Hardwick posted, and I remember speaking to him after and speaking during. We came. It was Joe, Dan, and I came out, and we got to like do an honest thing for, I forget what it was. We made an honest trailer for like, it was an event in LA they would do this all the time. They would cart him out, sit them in a chair, take photos with him. You'd charge people for the photos, or people would bid for them, and then he'd sit on a stage and talk. And he was still he still was managed to engage and be there. But I'll never forget, like, it was just clear he had no idea where he was, honestly, because he just was tired. He was elderly. And I remember Chris telling me the story of this afterwards, of just how hard of a gig it was. It was so unorganized by the handlers, and everyone was doing it. Everyone there just to sort of celebrate Stan. But Chris was telling me the story too, and I can attest. I was there. He's like, during mid-show, as Chris is trying to like do all this, who he's only doing it because he loves Stan Lee and wants to help and thinks it's all for him. At one point, Stan just sitting there, and Chris is like talking, how you having fun, Stan? And Stan goes, can I go home? And it was just the most heartbreaking, sad thing to know. Like, look, I don't know which guys, I'm not calling them out in specific, but there definitely were some people there who were trying to take advantage of him at the end. And it was sad sort of putting him in to like get a few more bucks that was going. And that's the sad reality in a lot of places. And so this book here talking about the trouble with his daughter and his wife at the end and him, blah, 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 blah. Man, that just makes me sad. Like, why would you go that angle? Like, sure, you could go.
Why would you want to do something against his wife?
Yeah, but it's like, and even if you want to do like a real biopic about it, about the warts and all, why are the rise and fall? Like, this article just all reads like it's a hit piece. Like, he was not the man you think. No, like, how about like he was a legend who did all this stuff, and he had struggles just like everybody else. And we document the struggles in the book, a celebration of Stan Lee. They're not going that approach, right, Lewis? They have to go with the negative to sell the book, to show it. Yeah, see the nefarious side of Stan Lee. Listen, you don't know. That pisses me off.
You morons that don't understand what capitalism is and strive. You fail 100 times before you get half a thing correct. And he failed probably according to this book, but he helped create Marvel. So that's more than worth more than your hit piece book is concerned. That's what you do. So what? Later on in his life, he wasn't, the team wasn't there, so what? He still did things. POW may have failed, POW Entertainment. I don't even know if it failed or not, but it was still bigger than a lot of people are going to get to do stuff, and it's like the fall, the 18 months, when you're 95, look as good you will not. Like Yoda said.
Well, right, and I take massive credit. That's why I want to do this. So you guys are warned. I don't want to support this book, and I'm not going to be supporting this book. And It's really weird. Why would you make a Stan Lee book where fans aren't going to be excited to support the book? But when you call the book "The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee," to me, that's you're saying it. He ended his life on a down, right? Is what that sounds like to me. This isn't a celebration or a history. This is a hit piece. The rise and then fall of Stan Lee.
And then the person on Forbs is supposed to be a professional. That's a biased title.
Totally. So, I mean, all of this is just a hit piece. They're all out there trying to get them. And look, none of us are perfect. Let's be honest. I'm sure everybody's got
great
some
power
chapter.
Comes great responsibility. Change that title.
But Lewis, exactly. There's so many ways you could do it. Every person has a chapter of their biography that they're going to be not the proudest of, right? That's what life is about. It's the ups and downs. But I believe while it was sad at the end for him, I do think there was something there. I feel for him in the end. I don't blame him at the end. And to hear that this article and this book are going to try and use that as sort of the failure of Stan Lee because he got old and couldn't control, sadly, people took advantage of him near the end. That should be the tragic part, right? But then you end the book with more of a celebration of what he did versus that. So, man, this is a hit piece. I'm so glad you point this out to me because look, I didn't know the man. I got to meet him once, and I don't know the truth about who knows what the credits are and things, but I think it's when someone passes away and they died, the legacy there, to try and tarnish that legacy to sell books, Mr. who was a stupid author, that you'll never amount to anywhere near the level that Stan Lee did, Abraham. This isn't a honest journalist piece. You're taking a side. And anybody who's writing a biography with a side, to me, that's a failure. So good luck with the book. A biography that reads like a thriller whodunit, scrumptiously honest, deeply damning, and somewhat even heartbreaking. Like, oh, that's just so sad.
They're really
sad. I don't want to read that book. Not because I'm afraid of the truth, Lewis, but just because, like, why? Why are you going that approach? You know what I mean?
The history of the world is written. The story of Stan Lee will be that of victory, that of success, that of giving joy to people, that of bringing smiles to keep people's face. And that's his public persona, and that's his private persona. If you don't believe me, that's fine. But there's other stories out there as well. And I was honored to have met him for a while and hung out with him for a while, a few times. And yeah, Stan Lee is the victory. His life's a victory. It's a great success.
Thanks for peeking it out. I mean, it is. I want to make sure I'm giving it. But like he look, Patton Oswalt is trying. He's got quotes from real people who are giving this book credit, which makes me frustrated too. But I don't like. Maybe the book is more honest than we're realizing, but the author is the one who sort of is embracing this. To be fair, Lewis, but everything I'm seeing, based off of the descriptions in the article here, making me think this is not a fair take.
From what the perception of the articles and everything that's coming out, it seems like a hit piece. Full disclosure, I have not read the book.
Yeah. So there we go. But I'm not going to read the book. I don't like the approach, and you can blame the media for it on it. But until someone I trust actually tells me to, take it as you will. Lewis, thanks you for being here. Check out Nerd Report, Nerd Report over on YouTube. Support him. And guys, if you haven't already subscribed here, please go ahead and hit that button. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet. It's Thursday night. We're live every Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.